Good morning, everyone. My name is Tiffany Summers. I am so excited to be here. I am from Peoria, Arizona. And today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite things that I do behind the chair, which is color correction. I know some of you are probably like, how the heck is that like a service that you love? I know it's crazy. Color correction to me is so much fun. Turning it, or oh yeah, hey Ashley from AZ. Um, so color correction is one of my favorite things to do behind the chair because number one, it challenges me. And who doesn't love a big challenge, right? So for me, being challenged behind the chair keeps things fun, just keeps things like interesting. And it's always just like, you learn from those challenges and it makes you a better and stronger hairdresser. So that's a big reason why I love color correction. I do them constantly. I would say, a creative color specialist. So I do a ton of vivids. I do a ton of color correction, just a lot of blonding. So I do it all from behind the chair. I love every bit of it. And I have been an educator with Pravana for going almost like 13 years now. So excited to show you all of the tools that I love to use behind the chair that make my life so much easier to be able to aid in my color correction services. So first things first, what is color correction, right? So color correction can mean a lot of different things. So whether that being from grown out regrowth, when we're talking about like 5 inches of regrowth, or even honestly, I consider a color correction anything really more than like 2 inches, because then we're working with your heat zone and the cold shaft, right? So grown out regrowth, going from dark to blonde, right? Or even from blonde to dark, because we know that we need to replenish the hair, which we're going to talk about today. Removing vivids. So removing vivids is something that I do a ton behind the chair because of the fact that I am a vivid specialist. I do a ton of vivids. So with that being said, when somebody wants to go from vivids back to blonde or maybe transition into a different color, we know that we have to remove all of that vivid and basically kind of start fresh, right? So we're removing all that vivid and then we're trying to neutralize, and that way remove those unwanted pigments in the hair. So then at that point, that is a big color correction. And so I do that a ton behind the chair. And then bands, when we're working with any type of banding. So somebody's come in and they haven't had their hair done in months or a year, right? We go to try to lift that from the scalp down. Well, now we're going to create different patches in the hair because we're working with the heat zone, we're working with the cold shaft, and then a lot of the times we have ends that have been previously pre-lightened, and there can be a lot of bands through there. Patchiness, so maybe at some point they've had their hair done and it just like took differently because of porosity issues. So a lot of situations can really be considered a color correction. So who in the chat box likes color correction and who is like so scared of it? Like, I want to know your thoughts. I know actually my assistant's on here. I just seen her pop on and she actually just did a big color correction. I'm so proud of her. She killed it. And she learned a lot from it. And honestly, that is what, that means so much because honestly, you're going to learn every single time you do a color correction service. And that is a big reason why I love it so much. So she said, makes me nervous every time, but always love, and I can't say the rest, but so good. So, and a lot of the times too, is when we are doing color corrections, sometimes it is easier to have somebody to help you with. So if you do have a big project, I really do recommend sometimes that maybe you get a partner or one of your salon besties to come in with you and see if they're able to help collab with you on that project. Because I will tell you, it is a lifesaver being able to have somebody come in and help you on that. I'm in a suite. I have a salon suite with my partner, Leanna, and she will help me a lot. I'm like, hey girl, we have this big project. I know it's going to take me a long time. Would you be able to, help on that? And so we really try to help each other out. because when we are doing certain situations, it's nice to be able to have somebody work on one side of the head and then the other person on the other side of the head. So basically, with that being said, now you can basically lift the hair at the same time. So a lot of the times when we are doing something, right, where we're trying to do maybe a platinum card, for instance, we might want to have help so we can have somebody lifting at the same time as we're lifting on the other side of the head. So that way, when we reach up to the top, it's going to lift nice and even, right? So highly recommend, if you are able to have somebody there with you, definitely maybe ask for some help. So one thing I wanted to talk about is some things that Pravana offers to make it very successful for us behind the chair when we're doing these big projects. So some of my favorite tools behind the chair are going to be my Pure Light Ultra Lightener. So Pure Light Ultra Lightener is going to be an incredible lightener used for when we are doing color corrections, from taking somebody super dark to going super light, right? So if we've started with a really dark canvas and we want to go to a lighter canvas, or even when we're doing situations, where we're having to lift that regrowth and maybe they are pre-lightened on the other side, utilizing our Pravana Ultra Lift Lightener is one of my favorite tools. This lightener can lift up to 9 levels. So it is a very great lightener because the fact that you are able to get that 9 levels of lift, and it has our Reunite mending technology. So it's actually a plant-based polymer that is mending the cuticle from the inside to the outside of the hair shaft. So amazing lightener, mixed to 1 part lightener to 2 part developer. I'm gonna have Sam pop a couple pictures. I don't know if she has or not. I'm on my phone. I was hoping to be on my iPad, but it wasn't cooperating. But she's gonna pop in a couple pictures of just some of the color corrections that I've done recently in the past. And some of those examples are where I have had a situation where I have 5 inches of regrowth because they haven't had their hair done in over a year and they've got really lightened ends. And I need to kind of catch up her regrowth to her ends. So those she'll maybe pop in there, and those are situations, again, where I really love to use my Ultra Lift Lightener. Even in situations when I'm trying to remove, let's say, a vivid, and I want to go back into maybe going into like a blonde situation. So there is an option on there. There was a photo I did that will pop up that is all orange. She had like 4 inches of growth of her natural, which is like, like a 5, and then the ends of her hair were orange. And she's like, I want to go blonde. And I'm like, blonde? So something like that, utilizing the Ultra Lift Lightener, game changer, because I'm able to do that all in that application. We're moving or diminishing that vivid and leaving me with a really nice canvas of hair to work with to be able to get me to the results that I'm looking for. So when we're talking about color correction, one of the biggest things that we really have to understand is the color wheel, right? It is something that we always are going to have to be very familiar with, and really understanding what colors are going to neutralize other colors, right? What we're going to be able to use to diminish or remove, neutralize out underlining pigments in the hair. It is so important because when we are when we are extracting the hair, right, we're exposing underlining pigments. And when we're exposing underlining pigments, sometimes we may need to put those pigments back into the hair. So it's really important to understand the color wheel. One thing that's really cool is on our swatch book, there is so much information in here. And one of those is being our, there you can see our color wheel right here. So this is a really great wheel that is basically just going to show you where everything sits within our ChromaSilk line. And then basically it'll show you to, where all the colors are going to lay. So you know, okay, if you're struggling with maybe not necessarily knowing what to use to neutralize a certain color, you can always refer back to your color wheel. Okay. Another thing that I love to use behind the chair when I'm working with color corrections is, again, like I was talking about, when we're wanting to neutralize out shades. So a couple of my favorite things are to use our express tones. So our express tones are amazing because they are fast acting. So what's really great about these is you can customize any of your shades. So you can mix any of our express tones within each other. So that way you can create your own shade to be able to neutralize out those unwanted pigments that you're needing to necessarily remove. So let me give you an example. So a lot of the times when we're removing pigment, right, we're removing out yellow and orange. And so we're going to need to know how to and what color to use to remove those unwanted pigments. To give you an example, so one of my favorites that I love to use behind the chair is ash. So here you can see ash is right here. Ash and beige is one of my faves. I love mixing the two of those together. Our ash is going to have a slight green blue, and then our beige is going to be blue violet. Okay, so those blue violet, for instance, who can tell me in the chat box what blue violet is going to be good for to remove? Any guesses? So nothing's popping up yet, but so orange, yellow. Yes, I love that. So beige is going to be good to remove orange, yellow, okay? Because that blue is going to be good to remove the orange, and then the violet in beige is going to be good to remove yellow. Exactly. And then so ash is going to be a really good one too, to leave me a very cool base when I'm wanting to remove pigments, maybe like a little deeper, darker, like orange red. Excuse me. So these are going to be really good to remove those. So quick little tip on these express tones. If you have not used them before, highly recommend them. We have our violet. Violet is going to be great to remove yellow, right? Then we've got our smoky silver. So smoky silver is really nice. It's also very great utilizing with any of the other shades because it's going to be really good to really pull and keep you to have a cool base at the end result. But it's going to be really good to help remove some of those deeper pigments as well. So those deeper red pigments and those deeper oranges, especially when you're mixing them with ash. Then we have clear. So clear is very important because clear is actually going to dilute any of your shades here, okay? So the clear is basically going to dilute your shades down to create custom levels. So our express tones can actually remove pigments and go to a level 7, okay? So when you mix it with clear, the clear is going to dilute the shade and can give you results to your levels basically from 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so that clear is basically just going to be used to dilute your pigment because these are progressive. So the minute that you put them on, you basically have like 5 up to 20 minutes for processing time. And it's really just going to depend, again, watching that hair and really just paying attention to kind of see, okay, like it's really removing that pigment. I know, okay, probably in a couple more minutes, I can rinse, or, oh, I need it to be a little bit longer and I'm okay with it going a little darker, then you can leave it on a little bit longer. Okay, so real quick with the clear, if you mix clear with your tone, it's going to dilute it. So when we're mixing 3/4 of or 3 parts, okay, 3 parts of our clear to 1 part of our express tone, that's going to give you for a level 10, okay? And then if you mix half and half, so 2 parts, so like equal parts of clear with one of your shades, that will give you a level 9. 3 parts to one of your express tones to 1 part clear, that is going to be for level 8. And then when you mix your express tone by itself, then it's going to be used for level 7. And when I say by itself, and when I'm talking about express tones, we always want to use our zero lift developer. So our zero lift developer is just strictly for deposit only. So whenever we're talking about our demi-permanent shades, which is our express tones, and then our hydro gloss, which I'm going to get into, because I'm super excited. I made some really cool fall formulas to show you guys. And so I'm going to go over those with you as well. And then again, that is going to be using our zero lift developer. And a little tip too that I would love to talk about is so many times people don't know that you can use zero lift developer with our lighteners. Okay, so I know it's mind blowing, right? I should have made some swatches to show that, but it just like reminded me, I'm like, how much I use zero lift with lightener, and people are blown away. A lot of the times, and my assistant and my, my salon partner, they know as well because they've seen it with their eyes and they're also mind blown. In many classes that I teach, we do projects like this where I show them how much that you're going to be able to get that lift using zero lift. Because one thing I want to talk about with color correction is the fact that when you are lifting shades, right, the power is actually in our lightener. And the lift that you're going to get is going to be in the developer, okay? Or the speed, I'm sorry. So the speed is actually in your developer and the power or the lift is in your developer. So a lot of the times when I'm doing these big projects, one thing that I like to say is that I always, majority of the time, I would say at least 50% of the time, I would say if their starting level is anywhere between a 5 and higher, so level 5, 6, 7, I typically am starting in the back, right? So when I'm going through and I'm doing a big project like a platinum card, I like to start with zero lift developer. And the reason for that is because when we're working and we're doing these big projects, we know that color corrections can take a long time, right? So we know that it can take anywhere from, a couple hours to 6 hours. I mean, sometimes the entire day. A lot of the times we block ourselves out for the entire day, or maybe we only have a couple clients scheduled for that day. So we know a lot of the times that these big projects take such a long time. And so with that being said, I like to use my zero lift developer starting in the back of the hair, and then I start to make my way as I get to the more of the crown of the head or the sides, I start to increase my developer. And the reason for that is again, because this is going to sit back here for a long time. What's really great about the lightener is you really have up to 55 minutes of its full capacity to lift the natural melanin in the hair. So after 55 minutes, that just slows way down. So at that point, it's obviously still in the hair, so you have to keep that in mind, but it's going to just work at such a slower pace. So we know that it's sitting back here for a while, and maybe by the time I get to the top, I may end with like a 20 volume, but now I can rinse the entire head or together versus going through and having to rinse the back of the head, right? Because we're like praying to the hair gods that the hair is, not going to be compromised. And, we're not trying to go through and do, 3 different washes, wash this back, process the side, wash the side. I don't know about you guys, but I like to wash my client all at the same time. I want to make sure that it just processes very even. And so with that, I really like to start with that zero lift. Pop in the chat box, has anybody used our zero lift with our ultra lift lightener, or maybe even our power lightener at all? I just want to kind of see, or maybe that's like mind blowing to you as well, because it really is such a great tool to use behind the chair. Love to see what your guys' thoughts are. And then another thing that I want to talk about is our Hydro Gloss. So another great tool, works like a dream for slower foils like me. Yes, I love that. Again, because some people work at different paces, right? All the time is love zero lift. Good. I love that, Carrie. So yeah, a lot of the times, we work at different speeds, right? You may have a newer stylist that maybe have been, only working behind the chair for a year or two, and they may be a lot slower than somebody that has been behind the chair for like 17 years, like myself, right? So I may be a little bit more on a speedier side versus somebody that might be on a slower side. And that's fine. We're not in a competition, we're not in a race, right? So it just is a great tool to make sure that we're going to keep the integrity of the hair, and then that way we can kind of work our way up into a higher developer. It just kind of like makes me feel so much better. I'm like, like I just feel like I'm not stressing as much, knowing that it's not going to basically like over process the hair, or I'm like freaking out because of the porosity of the hair or something. You still want to check it, obviously, but it's just one of those great tools to use. Okay, has anybody used our Hydro Gloss? So our Hydro Gloss is one of our newer launches within the past few years. Hydro Gloss is incredible because it can be used for multiple things. So here's our swatch book here. So this is our demi-permanent. So this is going to be mixed 1 part. Hi, Lori. I love Hydro Gloss. Yay. So Hydro Gloss is going to be our demi-permanent color, okay? So it's going to be more of a gel-like consistency. So it goes onto the hair so incredible. It makes the hair so shiny. It nourishes the hair. You'll get 2 times the shine. You will literally, I promise you, you will not be disappointed in trying Hydro Gloss. I kid you not, you can have somebody that maybe comes in with dry hair and you use Hydro Gloss on them, and they're going to be leaving with fully nice, shiny, conditioned hair. So it really does make the hair feel so much better. One of the things that I love to use Hydro Gloss for when I'm doing color correction situations is the fact, because it is a demi-permanent, basically what that's going to be helpful for is we're going into fall, right? Or we are in fall, and not going into, we are in fall. I mean, I'm in Arizona, I'm actually sweating. It's like very hot today. It's like 90 degrees. I'm sure some of you guys out there are enjoying the really nice cool weather, but it's actually still very much warm here. And so we are in fall, but we are eventually going to be transitioning back into summer, right? So a lot of the times when we come from summer to fall, what do our clients like to do? They like to go from light to dark. And then, what do you know? They'll do fall hair, they'll do their coppers, they'll do their reds, and the next thing you know, they're like, hey, Tiff, so loved my fall hair, but I'm ready to transition into summer. So then at that point, you're like, great, okay, now I need to remove everything that we just did for the fall. And then now we need to transition you into your summer hair. So what I like to do for things like that, for going from that summer blonde to the fall hair, is to use Hydro Gloss. And the reason for that is because, again, Hydro Gloss is going to be a demi-permanent. So when we're talking about a demi-permanent, it's not going to be it's not going to be driving into the cortex of the hair like a permanent color would. Okay, so when it comes time to the summer and they're ready to go back, we don't have to pull so much of that color from the hair. At that point, now it's going to make our life behind the chair so much easier to be able to remove this color and transition back into blonde hair, right? So it's like our client might not necessarily know that, but we know, like, hey, we know that they're going to change. So why not do why not do a demi-permanent gloss? So then that way it will make our life so much easier behind the chair, right? And then we know at that point too, we're going to keep the integrity of their hair. So when we are using Hydro Gloss, we can do this as an all-over color. We can do this as a root tap. So, we just did maybe a really pretty highlight. We want to tap the root and blend into a lighter formula. How long does the color last? Great question, Crystal. So Hydro Gloss typically is going to last 30 shampoos. So it really depends again on the client. I mean, really stressing to them to use our like new line. I don't have any of back here, but we just launched our entire new care line. And you can recommend one of our, like, let's say our moisture line to them, or maybe our intense therapy. Basically, just letting them know to that you're going to get kind of up to that 30 washes with it. And so, which can be a couple of months, right? Because I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not washing my hair every single day. So if you're an every other washer, right, you can get that couple of months. And so it's just stressing to your clients of exactly like, again, hey, just want to let you know, we're going to put this color on here. And it is going to last, but maybe back off on the shampooing as every day, right? So just kind of making sure that you tell them like that. Hopefully that answered your question. So another great way that we can use these is when we are doing gray blending. So one great thing about Hydro Gloss, in which could also again be a color correction situation, is when we're transitioning somebody into, let's say they have gray hair and they're trying to grow their gray hair out. They have 100% gray hair, but they've got some color on the ends of the hair. They just want to slowly remove or slowly transition into their gray. And they don't want to try to remove any of that previous color on the ends of their hair. So a great way that we can really color blend or camouflage that would be using our Hydro Gloss. And so the Hydro Gloss is basically going to blend up to 50%. So basically it's just going to, again, kind of camouflage that gray hair. So as you go to apply it, when you go to rinse, you'll be able to see that you definitely still have the color pigment on the hair, but you can kind of gradually see a little bit of that gray kind of shining through. So again, as it washes out, she's not going to have a line of demarcation. And so we know, again, because we're working with color corrections all the time, it's really difficult when we have these line of demarcations, because then we have to go back and we really have to fix that, right? So Hydro Gloss is incredible for that reason, because at that point, we don't have to worry about a line of demarcation when they come back in that 6 to 8 weeks for a refresh. So just another great option. Would you use this as a gray blending service for, oh, sorry, I can't, my phone is like, I don't want to mess up this chat. Can you read that question, Sam?
Yes, the question is, would you use this as a gray blending service for men as well? Could I use it in place of another brand?
Absolutely, great question. Yes. So it's actually my dad. I have other like men that I've used this on. Incredible, men, women. Anything you can really use this for. It is going to be great for those men that are transitioning again, or maybe the men that just want to kind of blend that, or again camouflage it, right? We don't want them putting some stark, I've seen men out there where they're putting that like hairspray or like paint, or some of those like they sprinkle like the dust or whatnot, and you're like, wow, like you can see it, it like does not look nice. The Hydro Gloss is going to look so natural, and that is a big key. I know back in the day it was like I had did something on my dad a long time ago as a tester, and he was like, don't do that again, because these men out on the construction site, they're gonna make fun of me. And so I'm like, okay, Dad, I got you. I won't do I won't do that. So Hydro Gloss is the win. So some of my favorite shades for that is going to be like the NT series. So we've got 1 NT, 3 NT, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we have the whole line of our NT series. And one thing that I really want to mention about our NT series is these are so great because they are a neutral base. And what that means is neutral is going to be unequal proportions of our primary tones. Okay, so what that means is basically you're going to not get too warm or too cool. Okay, you're going to have 3 parts yellow, 2 parts red, and 1 part blue in our neutral series for Hydro Gloss. So again, this is going to be great for those gray blending, as well as even when we're doing a highlighting service. So let's just say somebody is transitioning into fall, they have blonde hair, and they want to add some lowlights. And typically, if you were to just go to a end series, right? If we were to just go and choose something in our natural series, what do you think is going to happen if we put a natural on somebody that has very blonde hair? It's going to go very like muddy, ashy. It can look very like hollow, very drab. And that color may not last. It might like seep out of the hair very quick, right? So something to keep in mind is the neutral series within our Hydro Gloss is great because it is a neutral base. So it's going to basically kind of be filling the hair as we are depositing. So we know that we go to put this on a highlighted hair, or maybe even just as an all over color, we know, okay, great. Now I know that it's not going to look muddy, it's not going to look drab, and we're going to still get a beautiful result without it kind of looking, hollow or drab or muddy, okay? So that's like such a great thing with the neutral series. And so then we've also got our 1B. 1B is amazing. And the 1B is going to be really good, especially for those blue blacks. When we're talking, we want to go that blue black. So incredible for that. 8B, 10, we have our ABV series. So also very great to use. Ash beige blonde. We've got some BV, so those are going to be our beige blondes. We've got some red. We've got our 7CR. We also have some other shades that are not on here, and I actually did some swatching with them, so I'm going to show you those as well. And then we've got 5S. So when you ask me that question about men in gray blending, 5S is also very great. So depending on their natural level, the 5S can be very great because if they're 25 or 50% gray, and let's say they're at like a level 5, 5S is really good because it kind of gives them that smoky, very natural, silvery kind of effect to the hair. So the 5S is very, very great for that. And then clear. Clear can be used to dilute any of the shades. It can also be used by itself as a color conditioning service as well, or a color gloss for shine. So even again, so when we're doing color corrections and we have maybe taken somebody from, we've done a lot of extracting out of color, a lot of pigment removing, their hair's feeling really dry and damaged. This is a great add-on service that you can do to basically add that moisture back to the hair and give that shine that it's lacking. So very, very nice tool to kind of keep in your back bar as well, or at the salon. It's going to be really good to use that clear. So definitely keep in mind and definitely try to use Hydro Gloss. Highly, highly challenge you to go grab some of these shades and try them. Okay, so one thing I wanted to talk about before we get into showing you some of my swatches is what's the very first step that we need to do before we start a color correction? What's our first step? Does anybody pop that in the chat? So consultation, thank you, Ash. So consultation is key. Okay, when we are talking about consultations, we need to really make sure that we are going to have a thorough consultation. Okay, we know we have all of the tools and strand test, great one, yes. So we know we have all of the tools, right, to basically be successful in doing our color correction. But now we need to figure out, okay, what are we doing, right? What are they looking to have done? Are we, again, needing to remove pigment through the hair? Are we transitioning a vivid into a blonde? Are we, creating and fixing bands in the hair or fixing patchiness? Or maybe we just need to neutralize. Maybe somebody's coming in and they're very brassy and, they want to go more cooler. We can consider that a color correction, right? So many different ways or different, looks on what we all consider a color correction. So when our client first sits down in our chair, okay, we want to, again, first assess their hair, okay? Looking at their hair, what are you working with? And ask open-ended questions. It's very important to really make them feel comfortable. So when we are doing color corrections, it is typically a scary service. These clients are putting so much trust into us as the stylist behind the chair. They're coming to us because they're wanting us to necessarily fix their hair, right? And kind of give them what they're wanting. And they're putting all of that trust into us. And so we want to make sure that we are making them feel comfortable. And so we want to ask open-ended questions. We want to ask their hair history. When was the last time they had their hair done? When they had their hair done, what did they get it done professionally? Did they do it at home? Were they using, box color? We have to ask those very important questions to really get a good understanding of what we are going to be working with. So something that's going to be, again, very important is, we may need to do a strand test. We may be looking at their hair and we may be determining that their hair integrity is actually not ready for us to be able to necessarily touch their hair or put anything on their hair, right? So something that we really want to be open and honest with is basically letting them know, okay, I really don't feel comfortable touching your hair today. I think maybe we're going to provide you with some products. For example, like our Intense Therapy Leave-In. This is going to really help kind of nourish and strengthen their hair. It's going to help equalize their porosity in the hair. Maybe retailing them our Intense Therapy line, so our cleanse and our rinse. So kind of giving them the tools that they can feel, okay, I'm going to go home, I'm going to get my hair in much better condition, and then I'm going to come back and then she can start necessarily working on my hair. So it's really just all about being honest with the client. And one thing that I really like to say is under promise and overachieve, okay? It's a big one. Because really, sometimes with these color corrections, you really don't know how many times it's going to take you to get to your end result. So it may take up to, 5 services. They may have to come in multiple sessions for you to achieve what they're looking for. And so for me, what I like to do and what I like to say to my customers is, okay, I think today we're going to be able to, maybe remove the brassiness and get you to be a cooler blonde. However, with this probably is going to take another session. We are going to have you come back and we're going to have to, at that point, now we can maybe extract and work in, at the base of the hair or something. So it's just being very open and honest with them to let them know, like, hey, I'm very excited to work with you in your hair. However, these are the steps that we're going to have to take to get you there. What are some other great consultation questions, and pop in the chat box, that you guys kind of feel is going to, really help, give you those answers behind the chair to help you be successful in your color correction? Does anybody have any really good ones? Another thing is you're analyzing the hair. As you're talking with them, you're analyzing the hair. Again, kind of going through, you're looking at it, and you're going to go through your 5 steps of formulation, which number 1, you're going to determine that natural color, okay? So you'll maybe spread in the back of their hair, have them look in the very back and determine what their natural is, what that texture is, what their porosity level is. So kind of going through those steps to kind of determine and give you those necessary. Explain maintenance, home care pre-book. Amazing, Brenda. I love that. That was definitely something that I was going to get to. That's perfect. I'm glad you mentioned that. It's discussing price too. Because a lot of the times when these customers are coming in, you may have it listed on your website or on your Instagram what your pricing is. However, they don't know, like I charge hourly. So I charge an hourly fee for color corrections. So, but that customer, when they coming in, they don't know how many hours is that going to take. So you're charging them $120 an hour for color correction, but is it going to take you 1 hour, 4 hours, 6 hours? So they have no idea how much that's going to cost. So a very important thing that you just want to kind of bring up is say, hey, I believe that today is going to take probably 3 to 4 hours. Your expected amount is to be around XYZ. And so if they're okay with moving forward, excellent. And if they're not, then maybe you can give them an option to still be able to achieve some sort of fix in their hair, or or maybe, you just kind of like work around their budget in a sense, if you feel comfortable doing that. Product recommendations, and then ask if they have questions. That's a big one, is again, because we want to make our clients feel comfortable. So have them like, hey, Susan, do you have any questions for me? Is there anything that you're concerned about? Or, just again, having that, open-ended question, again, so that way they feel very confident in you behind the chair, right? Because you're the one giving them the service and they're wanting to feel like, okay, wow, I'm feeling so confident. I'm feeling so excited. And a lot of times you'll know immediately from their body language, or maybe they're going to tell you, oh my gosh, you know what, Tiffany? I trust you. Go ahead and do what you need to do. I feel confident. Let's continue to move forward. Okay. So half the time you really, really know. And if you're feeling like maybe you're not necessarily sure if they are feeling comfortable, really just try to do that extra to make them feel comfortable, right? Offer them a tea or a coffee or something like that, kind of get them feeling a little bit better, taking a deep breath. And then explaining the process. So a big one is going through and saying, okay, so we're going to do a situation where we are blonde and we're going dark for fall. So explain to them what exactly you're going to be doing to creatively or to successfully get them to their end result. So, okay, Susan, today I'm going to actually, first, it's going to be a two-step process. So my first step is I'm going to apply my all-over color. I'm going to then shampoo and rinse that out. I'm going to take you back to the chair. We're going to have to dry the hair, and then we're going to have to do our next step of pre-lightening. Okay, just again, letting them know what the service should look like at that appointment. What do you guys think? Are those some pretty good ones? Okay, so now that we've asked our consultation, what's going to be next, right? Actually formulating for our color service. So we've determined their natural color in their hair. We've determined their porosity, their texture, and now it's time to formulate for our hair color service. Okay. I'm going to kind of go into some formulas to show you. Because we are going, or because we are in fall, right? And fall hair, we typically have reds, we've got coppers, we've got really pretty browns. And then again, like I was talking about earlier, we may have to transition them into going into that summer hair. So I wanted to show you guys some formulas that I created, customizing with our ChromaSilk cream hair color, so our permanent, and then our demi-permanent, which was that Hydro Gloss that I was talking about. And so I wanted to talk about some replenishment shades, because we know that when we have removed somebody from light and we're going back dark, we have to add back those pigments, right? So I was talking about that a little bit earlier, and it's really, again, important because we have to, now that we've removed all of that pigment in the hair, we have to go back and add back that red, that orange, that yellow. Okay, so a couple examples that I have for you is, here is one that I did. Hopefully you can see that. It is so pretty. I am a sucker for coppers. Absolutely love them. I'm hoping to kind of go a little copper on my hair soon. But here is a beautiful copper shade I mixed. So, if you guys have any questions too, again, pop them in the chat. I would love to answer your questions. One thing that we want to keep in mind when we're talking about going from light to dark, we really don't necessarily need to replenish the hair, right? Or fill the hair. Anything more than, thank you, that copper is so pretty. Don't you think it would look good on me? The thing is, we don't have to, I'll answer that question in just a sec because I can't see it. One thing that we have to keep in mind is that we don't have to actually replenish or fill the hair if we are going anything lower than 2 levels. Anything more than 2 levels, okay? So if we're at a level 10 and we're only wanting to go to a level 8 or a 9, we don't have to replenish or fill the hair, okay? Because the fact that we're only had removed that yellow in the hair, right? So we don't need to add back that red, or we don't really need to add back that orange because we never extracted all of that out. We only are needing to go to 2 levels. So I wanted to do an example of a situation where where you wouldn't need to replenish the hair. So I created this one, and this formula is actually 3 parts of one of my favorite shades, 9.4. So 9.4 is from our permanent line. So ChromaSilk is our permanent tubes. And this basically is going to be mixed to 1 part of your color to 1.5 parts of your chosen developer. So I wanted a permanent effect, so I chose 10 volume. So I mixed 3 parts of 9.4 to 1 part 8.43. Okay. And when we're talking about 8.43, real quick, we're at a level 8, okay, right there in front of the decimal sign. That's going to be our level of deposit. So we're at an 8. Anything after that that decimal sign is the tone. So that first number is going to be 70% of our tone. The second number is going to be 30%. So when we're saying 8.43, that means we've got 70% copper, and that 3 is 30% gold. And it'll show you right next to the box how it says 8CG. So the C is like more capital. That just means because there's more pigment, it's 70%. And then it's a little g. So we are a numeric brand. And so, we do use our numbers. But, transitioning, you can always find the letters next to it to kind of help you determine what that color is. So we have an 8.43 and 9.4. So the 2 of those together is how I created this beautiful shade. It would be a perfect strawberry blonde. So somebody that's wanting, just a little pop of strawberry blonde throughout the hair. Such a beautiful, beautiful tone to use. Sam, can you let me know what that question was?
What would your formula look like if you went copper on your hair?
On my hair? Was that her question?
It just says on your hair.
Okay, so what would copper look like or like the formula look like if I were to put copper in my hair? So it would really just depend. So I have vivids on my hair. So I have a mixture of our, let's see, what did I do? Sunstone. I mixed sunstone and I had mixed a little bit of magenta. So it's faded out. So I had blonde highlights. You have some of my natural in between here. And then the vivids have just really faded out. So in reality, this is just vivids on top of pre-lightened hair. Okay, so depending on what copper shade I was going would really depend on my formula. So if I was wanting to maybe go to a darker shade, at that point I would want to replenish my hair. because I'm going to need to add back those pigments into my formula to be able to give me that longevity that I'm looking for. I could go on and I could put, let's just say, a level, 6 copper. I could go through there and put a 6.64, a red copper, and it would be very beautiful, right? I could go, or if I wanted to put, see, I'm trying to think of another situation. So, like if I wanted to do maybe more of just like a brown, at that point, I would want to for surely add in my replenishment shades, which would be like I would say like a 6.34, which I think I have back here. But so when we are adding into those replenishment shades, or when we're filling the hair, we do have a couple shades that we have that you can mix in your formula to help create that targeted result. So if I was wanting, again, to kind of go, let's just say a 6 natural brown, okay? At that point, if I were to put that on my hair, it would be muddy, right? Kind of like I was talking about earlier, it would be like very drab, very ashy, very muddy. So in that sense, I would for surely want to add back into those shades that I have removed. So that orange and that yellow into my hair since it had been already removed, right? So at that point, we have a shade right here, 8.34. Hopefully you can see that there. So or if we were talking about like a 6, then I should say probably the 6 I meant, sorry, 6.34. So 6.34, so we're at a level 6. We've got 30% gold and, or sorry, 70% gold and 30% copper. So I would mix 25% of my formula would be 6.34 and 75% of my formula would be like my level 6, like natural or so, okay? Hopefully that answered your question. And if I was just trying to go like a copper, more than likely for me, I would just, because I'm actually going to be going copper soon, I haven't decided which shade I want to do, but more than likely I'll probably choose something like in this range here, like the 7, like 4.4 or something. I would just put this basically on my hair with 10 volume for a permanent effect and call it a day, because it would be a very vivid, bright copper, which is like what I would be wanting. So hopefully that answered your question. Okay, next formula. So because we're still talking about permanent color, this is such a pretty shade. I feel like this is a trending shade right now too. Look at how gorgeous this is. Hopefully that is coming through okay. So this is like beautiful. So this is like basically like a very beautiful deep mahogany. Okay, so this is such a pretty color. So what I did for this formula, so for that, and again, really quick, I forgot to mention this, but all of my swatches that I created were actually this. So this is level 10, right? Would we say like this is level 10? Honestly, it's kind of like a level 11. She is over pre-lightened. It is over porous. So we are talking, and this is like level 10, okay? This is what we started with my formula. So we went from here to here, okay? So with that being said, wouldn't you guys say at that point I would for surely have to replenish for going for a color like this, right? Because I'm going from a 10 to a level 4. So I'm going a lot of levels, right? So when I have gone from that 10 to that 4, when I look at my underlining pigment chart, okay, because I was at a 10 and now I'm going to a 4. So we've gone through yellow, we've gone through gold, or through, yeah, yellow, orange, and now a 4, we've got red, orange, okay? So we're at a 10, we need to go to a 4. So we need to add back all of these pigments right here. So with that being said, what I did for my formula, so my targeted result, I wanted to kind of look something like this, a 4.52. So 4.52 is actually a beige brown. So we've got a mahogany. So the 5 is mahogany. So we have 70% mahogany. And then we have 30% beige, which is our 2, okay? So because now we're a mahogany beige, we know, okay, mahogany has some red, but I still need my copper and I need my gold, right? So, so basically at that point, I know, okay, I need to choose some shades that are gonna have some copper and some gold to fill my hair. So you could, something that, you know, I've been talking about is mixing in your filler or your replenishment within your formula. I know for me, when I got out of school or when I was in school, we were taught to fill the hair first, then go back and do our formula. You can do that. I'm not saying it's wrong. For me, time is money, right? So I want to be able to do that all in one step. So I choose to do that all in one formula versus coloring somebody's entire hair, you know, with that copper and that gold, and then going back through with my targeted color. What I do is I mix them, okay? So I'm mixing them in my targeted formula. Does that make sense? So with that, so I mixed 5.3. So our 5.3 is 100% gold. 5.4 is 100% copper. And I mixed it with my 4.52. Okay. So I did, see, I wrote my formula down. So I did 10 grams of each. So I did 10 grams of my 5.3, 10 grams of my 5.4, okay, which would equal 20 grams, right? And so then I did 40 grams of my 4.52. Okay, so you just want to make sure that your targeted shade is going to be 75% to 25% of your replenishment shade. Does that make sense? Adding kind of in that formula versus having to go back. Just want to check the time. I don't want to run over here. Oh, we are finishing up. Holy moly. Time flew. Okay. So I know some of you guys, we got to pop off. It's already 10 o'clock. I didn't even realize how quickly the time went. Here was another quick little formula I did. And this was using our Hydro Gloss. So our Hydro Gloss, I'll just show this really quick. I did 6 GC and 6 GBV. That was, again, applied on a swatch. That was a level 10 to this. So look how amazing. So that, again, we were filling the hair. So then that way we can end with this beautiful result. Does anybody have any questions at all? I know we went over so many fun things. Color correction is like crazy big, and you can literally talk about so many things, color correction. So informative. I love that, Ash. Thank you. All right. Well, I don't want to keep you guys. I know our time is up. And so thank you so much for joining today. Great class. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Again, my name is Tiffany Summers. You can find me on Instagram at Vivid Hair Creations. And then make sure to follow PRAVANA on all social channels. We have Instagram. We have so many incredible things on our website. So make sure you go on there. We have color classes on there. We've got all kinds of free ones, which you guys are, you know, obviously taking advantage today. So make sure that you follow PRAVANA on all social channels. And again, thank you so much. Hopefully you learned some incredible things. I don't ever receive that. So thank you so much. Bye, guys.